ainsi que deux acteurs principaux du film, Tantu Cardinal et Mike Wade. Et pour vous les présenter, je vais inviter dans quelques instants M. Yves Castonguay, le directeur de la programmation, à venir présenter un petit peu le film d'ouverture. Ensuite de ça, il va y avoir une courte période de questions avec le réalisateur et les acteurs. Et par la suite, M. Danny Glover va venir vous entretenir un petit peu sur justement le film dans lequel il participe pour le film d'ouverture et ainsi que ses impressions face au fait qu'il reçoit le prix humanitaire du festival cette année. Ensuite de ça, une fois que M. Glover va s'introduire, il va y avoir une période de questions également qui va durer entre 15 et 20 minutes. Les questions sont déjà prédéterminées, donc si on a un peu de temps, on pourra rajouter certaines personnes, mais on va nommer les journalistes pour lesquels ceux qui vont pouvoir poser des questions, et si on a plus de temps, on va pouvoir en rajouter. Par la suite, on va demander à tous les journalistes de vraiment quitter la salle extrêmement rapidement, parce qu'on doit faire des entrevues one-on-one avec M. Danny Glover dans cette salle ici. Donc, on va vous demander de vraiment quitter les lieux assez rapidement après le point de presse. Voilà.
And in English, if anyone needs it. We're about to introduce Laurie Niven, Tanju Cardinal, Mike Wade from Chasing Shakespeare. Emil Castonguay, one of the main men behind the festival, will come and present a short speech, introduce the guys. Then Mr. Niven will make a short speech about Chasing Shakespeare, our opening film, which is going to be having its Canadian premiere tonight. And then 4 o'clock, Danny Glover will be in the room. We'll have Fabian Kola, the president of the festival, give a short speech. Mr. Glover will give a short speech, then there'll be a question and answer period. And after the question and answer period, we ask you to leave the room quickly, as we're going to have some one-on-ones. There's only 3 one-on-ones. You know who you are if you have a one-on-one. So if anyone doesn't have the one-on-one, please just make your way out of the room nice and quickly. So yeah, that's all you need to hear from me, really, and we'll get the real talent of the festival up on stage in a second. Stage with Tantu, Mike Wade, and I'm Laurie Niven. Thank you very much, guys.
Bonjour à tous. Hi everyone. Welcome to the 9th edition of the Black Film Festival. Merci à tous d'être venus à la conférence de presse, notre 9e édition du Festival du film black de Montréal. Ça va être assez court. Ce soir, au Cinéma Impérial, nous ouvrirons la 9e édition du Festival international du film black de Montréal avec un hommage au légendaire M. Danny Glover. Le festival remettra le prix humanitaire 2013. Tonight at the Imperial Theatre, we will open the 9th edition of the Montreal International Black Film Festival with a tribute to the legendary Mr. Danny Glover. He will receive the 2013 Humanitarian Award at the festival tonight. Et juste après l'hommage, nous projetons le film Chasing Shakespeare du réalisateur Laurie Niven en première canadienne. Ce film met en vedette Danny Glover, Tantu Cardinal, Mike Wade, Chelsea Rickett. Tonight, just after the film screening, we will screen Laurie Niven Chasing Shakespeare, a Canadian premiere starring Danny Glover, Tantu Cardinal, Mike Wade, and Chelsea Rickett. So, sans plus tarder, I would like to present to you the director of the film. J'aimerais vous présenter le réalisateur du film, M. Laurie Niven.
Beautiful. Hello, everyone. Como talibou? We're absolutely honored and humbled to be here and to be a part of this festival. This film, when you see it, is really special, and it has a magical quality to it that really transcends anything we could have tried to do on paper or as artists. But thankfully, all of the artists on this project came together to create something that I think means more to an audience than a simple film. And, I encourage you to see it multiple times. The more I've seen it, the more I've enjoyed it. And I know I still get really emotional about the film, even after seeing it 100 some odd times. It's very complex below the surface. There's a lot of other meaning in the film, which I think you'll find as you see it. Meaning that there are subtexts that that, again, upon viewing, you'll begin to understand, some of the other messages. We really just finished the film this spring, and the screening tonight will be the first screening of the film in its final state. So in some ways, it really is the world premiere. And again, we're blessed, and we feel very honored to be a part of this incredible festival. Thank you so much.
I don't know if any one of you know Tantu Cardinal. She's one of a woman indigenous. How do you say that? Indigenous actress in Canada. She's one of our best actors. So if you have any question for her, she's been in multiple films. And she's here tonight with us. We're happy. It's a privilege to have her here. And also having Mike with us. He made the trip here just for you. So if you have any questions, go ahead.
Well, what was the experience of filming this movie?
As you see the film, you'll see that there are multiple storms. There are a lot of nights and rainy nights. Tip of the iceberg, believe it or not. There were nights that it rained when we needed it to rain. There were moments that happened that no one could explain. Like, there's a highlight of the film in the second act where there's a storm on a mezzanine balcony in New York City, and we needed to have an electrical storm. The electrical storm that showed up was so violent that we had to pull our crew and our actors off of the building because their lives were in danger. In fact, the power went out in the city that night while we were filming. So stuff like that happened, and we would look around at each other and just be amazed, And ironically, I think nature gave us production value that even Steven Spielberg couldn't get, So we lucked out, but more than lucked out, I feel like we really sort of put it out there in the cosmos that we needed all of this to come together, and it did. Just like Danny reading the screenplay and falling in love with it. When I read it, I cried, and I handed it to my wife, and she was on a flight with me, and she was 6 rows up, and I'm in the back of the plane, and I see her shaking, and her co-passenger is consoling her. I was like, okay, there's something special about this screenplay. So, and everyone that read it related to it in the same respect.
What was it like to work with Danny Glover?
Danny is an absolute dream to work with. He's so polite and so professional and so comforting. There was a moment when we were filming where one of our high-speed cameras broke down, and as you guys all know with your cameras, sometimes you have to stop. It was a scene with Tantu where they were slow dancing in a kitchen in the house. He used that time to tell stories. So he started telling a story about the making of Color Purple with Steven Spielberg. And he said that, and the story went on while I'm trying behind the curtain, trying to get the camera fixed and get the technicians, out to the set. But he used the time to make the scene better. Because in telling the story, and it was really a funny story. Spielberg was meeting them every Friday to rehearse, and he never showed up. So after a month of Fridays, he finally shows up with the other actors and says, "You all know each other now. You're a family. My not being here meant you guys had to talk, go to lunch, know each other's stories." So as he's telling the story on set while we're getting ready, it really, in a whole nother class, it really set the scene. It wasn't like as an actor you didn't retreat and go away and think about the scene. He continued the love and continued the family relationship in the room while we weren't filming. So that's a good example of the type of actor he is. And when you do cutaways, for example, you'll often bring in, a stand-in off camera. But Danny never wanted that. He always wanted to be engaged with the other actors, even though he wasn't in the shot. And that's special, very special. Great question, thank you. Yes, sir?
What would you say is important in this narrative within the whole context of cinema today? What's important about this narrative that might be missing or might be adding to today's cinema?
That's a great question too. I wanted to make a film that I hadn't seen before, something that could nourish your soul, and you could go back like a well of water and watch it again and be re-nourished. You know, I had great mentors. Oliver Stone was one of my mentors. I love Oliver Stone. I love his writing. But for example, I have a hard time watching his films over and over again. They're so they're so difficult and complex. I wanted to make something that was more a visual story to go along with the narrative that married in a completely artistic fashion, so that you could enjoy it like a painting, a Rothko in a museum. You could go back to it. So for me, that's what I wanted to do something that was special for me. And I'm a commercial director for 20 plus years. So for me to go do a movie, it had to be right. It had to be the right calling card. So at least that's my perspective. Yes, sir.
For the director, was it intimidating for the actors as well to work with someone like Danny Glover in this environment, and also from the director's point of view to deliver that message, which is of course very spiritual in itself?
Great. I feel like these are professional actors, and we're all filmmakers together. I think your celebrity is left at the door when you show up on a set like that, and you tend to forget about it. I purposely did not watch Inside the Actor's Studio with Danny Glover before the job, because I didn't want that to be around in my head. I didn't want to be thinking about that. I have since seen it, and he's amazing. But and with Tantu and Graham Greene, these are professional actors, and they're in character, and they're discussing the part when they're in the makeup trailer, when they're in the wardrobe. They're concentrated, and so we're all on the same page. I think no one really gets intimidated. Tantu?
It's something that builds over a long period of time. From the time that I got the script and got the story. I don't remember exactly how long that was, but it was a few months anyway. And it would kind of come in at different times. I was doing other things, doing other work. There'd just be a moment when something would hit, and it would filter in to that's where it belongs. And I had a feeling that this was a very important story because you can feel it, but also I've been wanting stories about our relationship as Indigenous people and as Black people. Those stories need to be told. We have a long history. There are stories of my people helping slaves get to the freedom train, for example. And we've had kind of a common, I don't know what's the word for that, a common experience, in a sense of, we have slavery in common, we have poverty in common, we have politics. There's a lot of things that we have in common. And I've always felt a sense of familiarity. And I gained a lot of strength from the civil rights movement in the early 60s. And that's where I got a sense of emancipation, And I always feel that the Black people have really demonstrated strength and spirituality. And so I felt like that it was, for me, it was a very important moment. I only worked one day on this movie, but like I was telling Mike, it was a bright, shiny day. And working with Danny is just, that's just like heaven. I mean, You don't need to talk about a bunch of stuff. You just kind of sense how things come together, and that's all good. I love that way of working. And everybody on set was like that. It was like this family that was brought together for a good purpose. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I haven't seen it yet.
There's only one person to play that part. She's right here. One person on the universe. It's true.
I have a question for Mike. What was your experience when you read the script? Did you know the casting who was in the film when you agreed to do the film?
Well, my experience when I read the script, as Nori said, it was just, I really fell in love with it, and, I consider myself to be the new guy on this project. We've got people like Tantu, Danny, Graham Greene, Chelsea Ricketts, the young lady who played my wife. They're all professionals. And like I said, I consider myself a new guy, not too long out of acting school and doing smaller budget things. So I also felt a sense of being very fortunate that I even got the script. And once I found out I got the part, I was in the supermarket, and my manager called me. She said, "You're playing the younger version of Danny Glover," and I was like, "Wow." I was like, "Wow!" It's because he's a veteran actor, and he just does great work. So I just felt very, very fortunate to be a part of a story that I felt so passionately about, because as an actor you don't always get that. Sometimes you kind of gotta, if you want to work, you may have to play this part that you feel doesn't add to society, or maybe takes away from society. So yeah, I just felt really, really fortunate, all the way around.
And Graham Greene's another Canadian Indigenous actor that's been known here, for a long time.
Yeah, Graham is great. He's funny. He's a really funny guy, and we, with our relationship on screen, he reminded me a lot of my actual grandfather. Actually, it's because my grandfather, he's a really funny guy. He always had us, laughing, and joking. So it's really great to work with Graham, who's just, a really, really professional actor. So that's the way it was working with Graham.
Graham wishes he could be here, by the way. He's on a TV series called Defiance, and he sent many emails hoping he could make it, but unfortunately.
Okay, I don't know if there's a final word, Mr. Newton.
Please enjoy the film, experience it, and think about it, talk about it, and just know that we so appreciate your support for this festival, and thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you for being here. Donc, comme je disais, on va, dans quelques minutes, M. Danny Glover va faire son entrée.
Well, I always work with baseball now, I always work with baseball.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming to this press conference where we're gonna be talking about the Humanitarian Award, the 2013 Humanitarian Award, and whom we're giving it to and why. My name is Fabienne Coas, I'm the president of the festival. And bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, c'est un plaisir de vous avoir ici pour parler du prix humanitaire 2013 et à qui on le donne et pourquoi. Alors c'est un vrai privilège et un honneur pour nous tous de recevoir une figure aussi importante que Danny Glover à Montréal et de pouvoir lui décerner ce grand prix humanitaire 2013 au 9e Festival international du film Black de Montréal. It is a tremendous honor and a real privilege for us all to welcome the living legend Danny Glover to Montreal and to honor him with the Montreal International Black Film Festival's 2013 Humanitarian Award. Vous savez, le Festival du film Black de Montréal décerne ce prix à Danny Glover pour ses extraordinaires contributions humanitaires ainsi que pour ses incroyables efforts et son dévouement dans la lutte contre l'injustice et l'inégalité dans le monde. Son combat constant pour les droits humains a permis à des gens de partout dans le monde de croire, d'espérer, de briser les barrières et d'accomplir de grandes choses. Pour ses efforts, Danny Glover, en 2006, a reçu le DGA Honor et il a eu le Pioneer Award en 2011 du Musée national des droits civiques. En ce moment, M. Danny Glover est ambassadeur de l'UNICEF et il a déjà été ambassadeur de bonne volonté pour les Nations Unies de 1998 à 2004. The MIBFF is granting Mr. Glover this award for his amazing contribution as an activist and humanitarian, as well as for his incredible selfless and dedicated efforts in addressing global injustice and inequality. His relentless fight for human rights has inspired people around the world to believe, hope, and overcome barriers, as well as achieving great things. For these efforts, Mr. Glover received the 2006 DGA honor, and he was honored in 2011 as a pioneer, with a Pioneer Award from the National Civil Rights Museum. En ce moment, M. Danny Glover est aussi ambassadeur de l'UNICEF. He currently serves as a UNICEF ambassador as well. So, en lui décernant ce prix, nous espérons mettre en lumière ses œuvres humanitaires tout en partageant son parcours avec toute une nouvelle génération qui est vraiment en quête désespérément d'inspiration. C'est aussi une excellente façon pour nous de montrer la vraie valeur de son cœur qui va bien au-delà de l'acteur primé, le producteur que vous connaissez tous. By giving him this award tonight, we hope we will shed light on his great humanitarian work and also share his great legacy with a whole new generation that is searching for inspiration. But it's also a way for us to recognize the true value of his spirit that goes far beyond the award-winning movie star everybody has come to know. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're gonna pay tribute to that legend. Right after the screening, we're gonna be, what's happening to me? Right after the tribute, we're going to be screening Chasing Shakespeare, Noreen Evans' Chasing Shakespeare, and we're going to have all the cast with us for the Q&A. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is Danny Glover.
Where's my script?
It's coming. You know anyone.
Let me say how honored it is, how honored I am, rather, to be here tonight at Black Film Festival here in Montreal, celebrating film by people of African descent from all over the diaspora. And I'm excited to see our new film, Chasing Shakespeare. In fact, I found myself telling the story over the phone because sometimes you do a film and you don't get a chance to, you don't get a great deal of information because there's so many things that are happening between shooting the film itself, editing the film, and then scheduling its release by virtue of festivals, and hopefully after that a theatrical or television release of the film. So I found myself excited about thinking about the moments that I had working on the film with a wonderful cast and a wonderful director who I didn't recognize when I came in today at the airport. But what else is new in my life? Well, outside of being at the film festival, I had the most wonderful day yesterday where I adopted a 10-week-old kitten for my grandson. And I hadn't seen him excited like that, and I don't know when. So because he was that excited, I was excited too, and remain excited. But no, all that aside, it's an honor to be here. And particularly by virtue of not only the work that I've been privileged to do as a filmmaker and as an artist, but also the opportunity to say even more in my work. I remember when I began, the moment I decided that this is the work that I wanted to do, the life work that I wanted to do, I had the privilege and the advantage of having a great writer who I felt wrote for me. And that writer was the great South African writer, Paul Fugard. And what Fugard's work allowed me to present was the importance of art, the importance of art as transformative. It also provided me the opportunity to say what was important for me in the world and whose side I'm on in the world. And at this moment in our history, I think it is imperative that artists make a clear statement in defense of humanity and in the service of humanity. My great friend Arthur Davis said to me only weeks before he made his transition, before he passed away, that we need artists to save us from machines. We need artists to save us from machines. We need art to reflect who we are, the potential of who we can be, and we need art to enhance the possibilities that reign within our own imagination. And whether we're talking about global warming or whether we're talking about various conflicts, war, peace, whether we're talking about poverty or whether we're talking about the need to find a more equitable world, we need artists to lead the way and to push us forward.
Thank you, Danny. We just have a
Merci
few...
beaucoup.
Yeah. We just have a few questions that people have requested from the floor originally.
James from Studio TV.
Sorry, James.
The Caribbean philosopher C.L.R. James, who I'm sure you're familiar with, who wrote the book Black Jacobins on the Haitian Revolution, used this term, placing ourselves in history. And I'd just like to ask you a little bit about your production company, L'Ouverture, which is really doing very impressive work. And this idea of placing ourselves in history, people of African descent, folks whose stories aren't out there. What is the relationship between this idea of placing ourselves in history, your work as a producer, and the kind of work that's coming out of L'Ouverture, and the cinematic space, the whole arena of cinema right now?
Well, the whole intention of setting up a company with my extraordinarily fabulous producing partner, Jocelyn Barnes, was to tell stories that reflect the possibilities of who we can be in the world, and to tell history as well. We're often informed by history allowing us to reflect, and we want to tell the stories that are often the stories that are not on our in the major cultural production realm. We want to tell the stories that reflect the struggle of women, that reflect the struggles that past and present struggles. And those are the kind of stories that L'Ouverture tries to do. We've been fortunate, particularly when it comes to documentary films. We produced a film, a documentary most recently, The House I Live In, which is about the war on drugs. With Eugene Jarecki, we produced the film Black Power Mixtape, which were the Black Power movement as seen by Swedish documentary filmmakers. We released another film that was nominated for an Oscar, And each of these have received awards, whether it's Sundance or nomination. Another film called Trouble the Water, an inside view of Katrina, Hurricane Katrina in 2005. So I think most of that, we're in the process of creating, producing a film or that with Naomi Klein, called The Messenger, Climate Change and Global Warming, a documentary. Naomi Klein and a partner, Harvey Lewis. We're also involved in producing a documentary on global arms sales from a book by a South African member of the ANC, former member of the African National Congress, Eugene Feinstein, called Shadow World. So those are the kind of things that, outside of the film that we consider our signature piece in this, which we're still trying to produce, and that's the film on the Haitian Revolution, focusing on Toussaint.
Now, I believe Pierre Landry might want to go live on CBC with a question if he's linked to CBC on air now. No? Okay, well look, we'll squeeze in Lorenzo from Times Square Magazine quickly while he's linking up to the CBC on air.
Hi, Mr. Glover. A few words of wisdom for young black filmmakers as these festivals, become more and more popular and take a growing space in the world.
One of the things, I think filmmakers, and there's such a creative group of filmmakers, both men and women. I just presented an award to a young filmmaker, Diane Gay, who lives in Paris. I had her first film at the Toronto Film Festival released. She's of Senegalese descent, and she lives in Paris. And when I saw her work, it reminded me of Ousmane Sembène and the great Jibril. Elements of that work reminded me of that. And so they're there. We have to support them. The words of wisdom should be to us who have the capacity as writers, as journalists, as critics, as funders too, to support filmmakers, to support these adventurous filmmakers, because we have to find a way to kind of shift the narrative, and often the narrative is limited within the film work. I mean, the idea, the reason why I decided to do Chasing Shakespeare was the narrative was shifted. There was a different narrative. And it's a narrative that you don't often see realized and expressed in what we can call the cultural paradigm that we exist in. But I'm always looking for that. How do we shape and shift the narrative? How do our voices resonate within a different narrative, not just to simply coexist in the present narrative, but how that changes and how we determine that. And it's going to take independent filmmakers, it's going to take imaginative filmmakers and courageous filmmakers to shift that and make that happen. So I want to encourage them, And it's not to say there's a plethora of black films that have coming out this year, that have come out within the last year. And while they present some glimpse or some inclusiveness within the general narrative, I don't think that they express the full complement of ideas within our own imaginative power. And so this question is still, there's always been, how do we change it? How do we shift it? What are the elements? Look at your film, is attempting to do something, and the reason why, like I said, our signature film is on the Haitian Revolution. But in the course of doing that, we find ourselves in the midst of world cinema, whether it's the Thai film Uncle Bumi, who recalls his past lives, Chap Pong's film, or whether it's the film that we're engaged in, the documentaries we've engaged in now. Another documentary that we're also involved in was the liberation movements, the African liberation movements, and revisiting those movements through our friends who are involved in the Swedish film industry. So there's another way of looking at it. Or, you know, the 3 Palestinian films that we've been producers on. Anna Marie Jessur's Salt of the Sea. She's the first Palestinian woman to direct a feature film. Her next movie, When I Saw You Last, and an epic film by I think one of the world's great filmmakers, Eliel Suleiman, The Time That Remains. Those are the kind of ways in which we introduce or look at this narrative in a different way. Or the new film that we're supporting from a young Moroccan director. It's her first feature film. And so there's ways in which it's necessary to stop, to step out of the box. And what's happening, I think, in world cinema is that people want to see their own images. I think that people simply are not, are simply supportive of the greater film industry, but they also want to see their own images. And I think we have to begin to support that. Film provides, while not answers, it certainly provides us a framework for discourse and discussion about what is really happening to us, you know? And we need to use that opportunity for more and more that we don't understand that what's happening to us from the various ways in which our privacy is compromised, the various ways in which our democracies are compromised by the influx of corporate power and greed. We don't see what's happening to us. We don't. And that's one hurdle, because the next hurdle is to overcome our complacency and or fear to try to resolve and do something about what is happening to us.
So we're going to have time for 2 more questions. First, PDA, so you can go ahead, and then after Dorothy, Alexandre.
Mr. Glover, in French, if possible, what are your impressions of Montreal? If you have a few words in French.
C'est bon.
Love it. Thank you. Love it. That's
a quick one.
Fantastic.
You know, it's interesting because my daughter went to a French American school, and she's fluent in French, you know, and her mother went to high school because her father was in the Air Force, went to high school outside of a village right outside of Nancy in France. So she was the only black girl in that boarding school she went to. So all she did was run away to Paris. This is years and years and years ago. Run away to Paris and also read. And they both were fluent in French. And so when they would always talk in French when they wanted to. So I had to figure out some of what they were saying, what they were talking about. Whenever they wanted to talk and didn't want to be part of the discussion, they speak in French.
But I gotta say also that Danny Glover is a great friend of Haiti, and he's been, part of Haitian culture for the longest time. So Danny, you not only heard some Creole but some French as well from your Haitian relationship,
Well, it's interesting because my relationship with Haiti began when I was a student about well over 40 years ago. And when I read Black Jacobins, because I didn't know about the Haitian Revolution until I read Black Jacobins. And it was remarkable because I had never heard of this incredible event that happened, you know, within a framework, within a time span. There were 3 revolutions: the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and the Haitian Revolution. And you talk about the other 2, but you never talk about the Haitian Revolution. You never talk about the Haitian Revolution. And then when I began to look back on the writings of abolitionists during that period, the period of the American abolition movement against slavery, they all reference every single Wendell Phillips, Frederick Douglass, John Brown. They all reference the Haitian Revolution in some way. And Frederick Douglass, in his great dissertation at the Chicago World Fair in 1893, said that we owe so much to the Haitian people. We of African descent, we Africans, we from the Caribbeans, we from Latin America, we owe so much to the Haitian people. And he considered himself the great, I would say the great emancipator, considered himself a Haitian at heart.
Thank you. So one last question, Mrs. Alexandre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walter. My question is, you're an actor, you're a producer. When you look back in the beginning of your career and now when you look back now, if you knew then what you know now, in terms of maybe some fears you had, in terms of maybe projects that you didn't think that we're gonna go through, how do you reflect on something in particular?
I think one of the tragedies of life, but one of the wonderful things of life is that you don't have a pencil to erase what you've done in the past and rewrite it. It's done, you know. And I think that's one of the great things about life, you know. I was campaigning for a young man, John Barrows, in Boston Sunday. I was in Boston Sunday campaigning for mayor. And I remember this young man from 21 years ago when I came up there for a community project called the Dudley Street Initiative. It was unique among any community projects in the country at that time. And a great friend of mine, Gus Newport, was the director, and he asked me to come up there in 1992. And from that moment on, when I was so amazed by the vision, passion, and around this project, community development project, because I'd come out of community development from the 4 years when I was in university and 6 years that I worked in city government after that. I was so fascinated by that I've talked about that project for the last 21 years. And now this young man who's now just had his 40th birthday Sunday is running for the mayor and has just received the endorsement of the Boston Globe as one of the candidates for mayor of Boston. And I saw him, I met him as a young leader at that time, and how he's grown in that capacity and taking on this new responsibility. So I say that to say that whatever has happened in my life is I've been able to not only, you know, watch a daughter grow and a grandson grow, but watch men and women grow and change things that are happening in the world. You can't take that away. You can't say, okay, if I'd have done this and that, or if I hadn't done this and that, if I had not discovered this great South African playwright, I might not have been an actor. I might not have chosen to be an actor. But something resonated in his voice, something about the struggle in South Africa, something about the human dynamic that resonated in his voice. And not only was I able to embrace that as an actor, I was able to learn the craft of acting because he was one of the greatest playwrights of the last part of the 20th century. So those are things that you can't do. They're things that you wish, of course you wish you could do. I wish I'd have been a little bit more aggressive in ways. And I say aggressive at certain points that I wish my ideas, some of the ideas that I have now, they would have been able to have been a little clearer a decade ago. And maybe I would have used whatever leverage I had a decade ago or 15 years ago to initiate those projects. Those are the kind of things you do wish that you were able to done. I wish I had been able to find, if I had been able to find Jocelyn Barnes in my life, instead of 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when I met her 14 years ago, suppose I had found her 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. But she wouldn't have been developed the way she is now. You know what I'm saying? So you know, it's 10 half dozen the other. You know, you can go this, you can say that, whatever it is. All right.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to
disrupt
you or something. No, somebody's just telling you if you want to take the last question.
What do we have for the film? They talk about the film. So I talk about Danny Glover.
Oh, we talked about the film.
Oh, you already
Yeah.
How come I wasn't invited?
We're gonna ask Nari that question. Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up, but I'd like to tell you that tonight is a big night, not only for the festival, but also for Montreal, and also for independent film, film industry. Because it's not often seen that you have a Caucasian director casting a black man and a native woman and then falling in love together through a beautiful story. And this is like history for us today. And we're very honored to have both Danny Glover, Tenth Cardinal, and then Mike Wade, and then the whole cast of Chasing Shakespeare attending tonight. Donc c'est vraiment sans précédent d'avoir la majorité du cast qui va être là avec nous ce soir, and not an event that has come from so very far to come to be with us. Donc, on va en plus remettre le Grand Prix humanitaire à Danny Glover, qui vient tout de suite après son grand ami Hyatt Regency. Alors, on vous attend ce soir, dès le tapis rouge, jusqu'à la soirée, et nous sommes très heureux d'annoncer que c'est Jamie Archer that's going to be the host tonight, and the festival is presented by Global Montreal, and will run until September 29th. Donc, c'est un rendez-vous, on vous attend tout à l'heure à l'Impérial.